Hello friends and everyone, you're welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. I am Frederick, as you know already, and I'm happy to meet you here today. In this video, we are going to talk about how to consume .NET 8 Core Web API default authentication endpoint in .NET Maui application. So we are switching from the web app to the mobile app. I've done a lot of videos using this identity in web app. Now we're going to talk about how to consume this authentication in mobile app as well, and henceforth that is the Maui application. In .NET 8, ASP team has provided an opt-in endpoint which is very easy to configure. No controller creation. There's nothing. Okay, what you need here is to just add some services, add some endpoint, and now create your context class, and boom, you have your endpoint, and that's authentication endpoint. We're going to have a look on that. I've done this already, and I think 3 or 4 times with separate projects. But if you haven't watched any of them, don't worry. I'll just go through them over here as well. After that, we're going to consume this API inside our Maui app. We're going to authenticate ourselves, and we're going to cache the refresh token, and I'll keep it, and I'll add it to the header to make a request, which is protected endpoint in the API. And that will be the end for the video. So as usual, if you like what I'm doing, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and also click on that bell so you receive updates as soon as a new video or new content drops. If you also enjoy what you're going to see today, please don't forget, it's very important, give this video a thumbs up, because when you do that, it helps this channel grow. Stick around to the end, because trust me, this won't be something that you want to miss. It will help you a lot. Also, so before I get started, let me take some time and appreciate you for watching all my videos at the time. You know, as sometimes it sucks, but you're doing your best. Thank you so much for that, okay? And I also do my best to make my videos very simple and clear. I do offer a training session or coaching session to those, let me say, beginners who are interested in Blazor and .NET technologies. Talking about Blazor hosting models, WebAssembly, Blazor Server, and at the current .NET 8. Also, .NET Web API, Blazor Hybrid, and also .NET Maui application. So if you're interested, I have the email down there, the description. So go in there and now hit me up. I'm going to put this project at the GitHub, so don't worry. You can also get it from the GitHub. All that you need to do here is to check the video description, and I'm going to find a link over there. Click on it. You go to GitHub and now clone it. Please, when you get there, do not also forget to start that repository. It's also important to this community as well. Thank you so much for being there for this channel. And now let's move on. So the name of this project I'm going to create here is going to be Demo Contact Maui App. It's a contact. Demo Connect Maui App to .NET 8 Default Auth API Endpoint. It's very long, isn't it? I intentionally made that so that as soon as you go to the GitHub, you're going to see it. You can extract definition from this repo. Okay, so let me just grab all this, and I can't type all this. I have to grab it. Now let's go to the file. Let's launch a Visual Studio, and now click on Project. We are going to create a new endpoint, and this is going to be for .NET 8. So we're going to choose Web API. So search for this, and I'll go for Web API, and that is this one. Now this is a name, put it over here. Now the solution, maybe you can add solution to yours. So solution to the solution name. Click on create. Now let's see. So next, and the framework version here is .NET 8. So choose .NET 8 and maintain. Let me see. Okay, so let's maintain. Now click on create to get this project created. Now, once this is created, we are going to configure the endpoint. That's the opt-in endpoint, inbuilt endpoint by Microsoft. That is what we're going to do. So after the creation of this project, now we have our API. Now this is what we're going to do. We are going to install some packages. That is what we're going to use to create a database in our context class. And talking about these packages, I believe you know them already. EF-Core, EF-Core SQL Server, EF-Core.tools, and also we need a /backup.ASP.NET-Core.filters, because it's going to give us the access to a section whereby we can add header to or token to the the header request or the request header. Let me put it that way. Okay, so the HTTP request that you're going to make, when you're calling to a protected endpoint, we need to add a token to the header. And this package can help us achieve what we want. So I'll just go to, let's go to the project. So I'm going to just right click on this and I click on unload this project. Now if I click on it again, you can see I have this package items. Now within this package item, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just grab these packages from here. Then I'll paste it here. So these are the packages that you need to install. You install ASP.NET Core.Identity.NT framework and forget about the version. As far as it is 8.0, you're good to go. You install EF Core and so SQL Server tools. You need swashbuckle.ASP.NET Core and also you need the filter. This is the old version, so let me just remove this. So whilst you have that, we're going to save this project and I reload with dependencies. Doing so is going to get into the section where we have the packages and try to reload or load these packages or install them into this application. So instead of going to the solution and I right click on the package to install it one after the other, I just have to add the item group as package references. Then I'll just right click on this and I reload the project with dependencies and it's going to install these packages for me. You can also do same, or you can just right click and I'll go to package manage NuGet packages and I try to install these packages as well. So right click and I click on reload project with dependencies and this is going to update the project, going to restore all these packages. If I click on dependencies and I click on manage NuGet packages, I'm going to see all these packages installed under the section of installed. So if you're having installed that, click on the browse tab and make sure you install them one after the another. So let's wait and I get all these packages installed. As you can see from here, I believe we have them installed. Okay, so let's see. We have an update that we need to do, and these are the updates. So there are new updates. We can install these updates. So select all packages and let's update them. Yeah, so they are updated. Now let's go in there and I right click on this project and let's build it and see if everything is working as expected. Alright, so the output tells us that everything is working. You can see one succeeded, and when you check our solution, we have just one project here. So that project is successfully built. Alright, so now we have this. The next thing to do here is we are going to configure the opt-in endpoint. You can do that from the program.cs file. But before we do that, we have to create our DB context class first. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. Let's create a folder and I'll name it as data. So I'll click on add and new folder. And then here I'll say this is data folder. And in that, I can create my app.db context class here. So add a new class and I'll name it as app.db context. So that is a class. And now after creating this app.db context class, we have to inherit from this identity.db context. So this identity.db context, and it must be inherited like this. Now this identity.db context here contains maybe properties that we can use, username and maybe a password. So is it username and password? Yes. The username here, it is straightforward to the email. So the email, that's what we're referring to as username. And we are inheriting from that. If you want to know how to customize this identity user, right? Maybe I have a video done on that, and I'll put at the description. So please check the description. You're going to find it over there. But for now, let's maintain the default one. So we inherited from this app.db context. We create a constructor which inherits from the base class, that is the identity.db context. So we create our constructor here, and now we're inheriting from this option, that is the identity.db context class. You know, if I right click on this and I go to definition, this identity.db context class Let's wait for it to open. You can see that it has an identity user over here. And now if I click on PEEP the definition for this identity user, we have just the username. So check, you see we have this username. And the username here, it is going to be the email address of the person. Okay, so in this identity DB context, we have one property that we can use for registration, and that's the username. Okay, so once we have this set, the next thing to do here is we have to add the configuration settings in appdb. Is it appdb app settings.json? And that's going to be for database connection string. So here, let's pass it over there. And this is what I'm going to do. I have the connection set already. So why won't I go in there and grab it? Let me do that, make it easier for me. So let me just come here and now paste this. So is the name here, the section name is connection string. And now the key here, it is the default connection, and that is the value. So you see we have the server to local because you're using localhost. Database here, it is a demo identity DB, but you're not doing that. So this is demo, let's say Maui endpoint, something like that. Endpoint DB. Then trusted connection to true, and trusted certificate to also true. That's right. Make sure you bring this comma, is very important. Now save this. Let's go to the program and let's try to configure this opt-in endpoint. So that is what you see when you click on the program.cs file. So the very first thing that we need here is we need our connection string. So let me put it, that is the starting. And now that is the ending. So we are going to configure all our stuffs in here. So here we are adding this appdb context, and we're using an SQL server. We are getting the section name from this default connection as a section. So here it is a key. Now if we check this app settings.json, this is a section name. We have the key, and that's the value. So when you call for this section name, you can just go in for this default connection, and now you can have access to the value here. So this is the key. You have its value. All right, so that is what we are getting from here. The next thing to do here is we're going to add this authentication system. And to do that, we have to add this 3 lines of code. Maybe you can put it as 1 line. We can add without the services dot add identity endpoint. And here, so this, instead of using this app user, maybe you can use this identity user. And that's the default one that it comes with the opt-in endpoint, identity user. So we use this identity user. And we have this appdb context from where you're going to have all the framework store as well. So at appdb context, we have a set. The next thing to do here is we're going to add a filter to the Swagger UI. You know, Swagger enable us or help us to have access to our endpoint, right? Now, some of these endpoints, they are protected. In case you want to call any endpoint, we must provide a token. So when you register and log in and now you have the token, where can we pass the token to? So we can have access to, or we can call other methods which are protected with token. That's why we need to include this filter. So that's what we are doing here. We are using this Swagger gen, but we have the Swagger gen here. So let's remove this from this section. And now in here, there's a security definition is an O2, and that's an auth2. And here, in here is a parameter location, that is the header. So we are setting this to the header. That is the name. So that's the section name, that's authorization. And now you want to specify the type as an API key. Okay, so you're going to have a section known as authorization, and you're going to have an API key as a bearer token that's going to be set over there. Okay, so that's what we need to do. And let's see. So these are settings that are the services that we need to configure. Now, when you come down here where we have our middleware, let's also add some 2 guys in here. Then we can move on with that. The first thing that we are doing here is on top of this app HTTP redirection, we can actually put map.identity user. So identity user. So it's the same class that we use here. So make sure they are the same. The endpoint and identity must be the same. Okay. Then we have authorization set already. And now map our controller to is over there. Okay. So this is what we need to do. A very simple one. Let's save this and let's build this application again. so we can perform database migration. So as you can see, it is built. Now click on Package Manager Console, and now let's add database migration. So add as migration. And we're able to do this because of the efcore.tools that we installed, the package name. So let's add migration. It's going to build first, then we're going to update the database. So successfully created, and the file is created. Now let's put into the actual code. We're going to say update database. So this is going to run the whole thing here and then create a table, database, create table, and create the columns respectively. Okay, so invariant culture. Let's go to the here settings, and I'll set this to false. Save it. Now come back again. Now let's do it again. All right, so it is done now. So let's close this. So when you go to SQL Server Objects and we search for that, you're going to see the database table name that we created. So SQL Server, that's what I use, the server name databases. And I can see we have this demo Maui endpoint DB. If I open that, we have and open the table folder, you're going to have all the tables here. So these are the table names: ASP.NET rows, ASP.NET users, and etc. But what you're going to focus here is ASP.NET users. So if I click on this, and I can see we have this ASP.NET users, right click, and I go to view data, and you're going to see currently the table here, it is empty. So there's no data in here. So in the configuration, we're going to register from the Maui app, and we're going to also log in from the Maui app as well. Okay. All right, so we are done with that. Now, the next thing to do here is let's run this application. When you run this, I believe you're going to have access to our endpoint. So click on this to get it run. Wow, so you can see that we did not create any controller here, but we have this opt-in endpoint created for us, and it's by the ASP.NET Core team. Okay, so you can register, you can log in, you can refresh, you can confirm. I've done a video on how to connect this registration and the login into Blazor application, and that's the .NET 8 Blazor, and also how to add the refresh token. How to use refresh token in the Blazor app. I've also made a video on that. I'll put them under the description as well, so you can just go in there and now check it out. Okay, but for now I want to focus on the register and now the login in the Maui application. So the filter that we added, you can see now we have access to this key. As soon as I click on that, you can now specify our bearer and now add the token to it to get this header authenticated, or send this request to any of our endpoint when a communication is being established. All right, so let's close this. Now we have it created. So if I click on register and click on try it out, let's try one and see. So I'm going to say this admin@gmail.com, and now the password here, we're going to be admin@123. Let's copy this credentials, click on create, and I'm just going to create account for us. We're going to have status code of 200, and let's wait for the response. So that is a response. You can see the response header here. The code is 200, but you see nothing here. Let's go in there and log in. As soon as you log in, you're going to have access to our token, a refresh token, and even the expiry time. So log in, check it out. Now you can see we need to provide email and password that we use for the registration. So we paste that here, and I click on execute. So let's wait and see the outcome of this. So you can see we have a token type as bearer. We have our access token over here, and we have our refresh token, and we have an expiry time, right? Now, what we need here, it is a bearer token, the access token. That's what we're going to use in our Maui application. All right. So we have our endpoint configured, and it is working 100%. So let's move on. The next thing to do here is we're going to add a project to, that's a Maui project to the project already, the project we have already. Okay, so let's add Maui app to it. So right click on solution, click on add. Before that, let's stop this. Okay, So let's do it. And now right click on solution, click on add now the new project, and you're going to choose Maui app. So Maui, and I can see we have this Maui app. Click on it, and now this is Maui app. So let's say this is demo Maui app. So to endpoint, let's say this is the name of an app. Okay, so let's click on next, and let's use 8.0 from the framework and click on create. So this is going to create the application for us. So once this project is also added successfully, we have to install some packages. That's what you're going to use. The first package that we need here is the community toolkit.mvvm, because you want to use the MVVM architecture, so we have to install the package to support it. And also we are going to use this time around all my videos that I do testing web API with mobile app, I use DevTunnel. Okay, and for now we are not going to use DevTunnel. We're going to see a way that we can connect our device to our machine, our mobile device to our machine, using the HTTP extension. So we're going to use a package known as the Microsoft.extension.http. And in that, you're going to have access to the HTTP client factory. We're going to create an instance of it. Then we can add the header, the token to the header, and I'll make a request with it. It's very simple. So what we need to do here is let's add these two packages. I'll go to the solution. This is the app. So let me close the endpoint, that's the API. Right click on this app, and now let me go for the unload project. Now here, where we have these packages on top here, let's include the two packages, or you can install these packages as well. Community toolkit.mvvm and our Microsoft.extension.http. So install these two packages. As you can see, the versions must be 8, right? And I'll check it out. So let's save this. So after saving this work, what you need to do here is I'll go to solution and right click and go to reload project with dependencies. We're going to install these two packages as well. If you right click on dependencies and I go to manage NuGet packages, you're going to find these two packages also added to the project. Let's have a look. So under the install type, you have to see these two packages over here. And that's what you see here. We have the current toolkit.mvvm, and you can see we have the HTTP over here as well. Okay, so everything is set. We have license. Let's accept that. Okay, now we can close this. We have the package installed, so we can also close this too. All right. Now, the next thing that you're going to do here is we want to configure the application to support, at least when using the mobile app as an Android emulator, it can support offline communication to the local host. You know, .NET Maui emulator do not support that. So let's have a way to do that. And in this case, we are going to create an interface. We're going to handle the messages. So based on the platform, so you're going to create an interface known as iPlatform HTTP message handler. So let's go to, and now this interface can be created to the root of this project. So you can create a folder and now put inside, okay? But for now, just add it to the root here. So add a class. I'm not going to use class. I'm not going to choose an interface. And now the name here is iPlatform HTTP message handler. So let's add this interface. We can have one method known as HTTP message handler. So let's handle the messages in here. So we get all message handler, we get all messages in here. Now we need to create an implementation for this. Okay, so we can create an implementation based on the iOS and also based on the Android. For now, we are going to use an Android. So let's go to the platforms folder and I'll go to the Android folder. And in here, we're going to create a class in there. And now the name of this class is going to be Android HTTP message handler. So this is related to Android. So that's why I name it as Android. This for Android. So I click on this Android folder, add. Now it's going to be a class. Let's add a name as Android HTTP. Now within that, it's very simple method that we need to call or we need to inject in here. So I'll just have to grab this and I'll paste it here. So we are inheriting from the interface that we created. Now aside from that, let's see if we have this interface. Now with this namespace, let's remove and I'll maintain this. Okay, so this is coming from this iPlatform. This is the interface, and here there's a public interface iPlatform. So save that. Now when you go to the app Android, you can see we have the same thing over here. Now control period, maybe you can include the reference this. So here we need to include this. And so let's add the reference to this, and it can be found in here. That's the root of this application. Okay, so let's see where we created. We created that to the endpoint. Oh, okay, to the API. Now it's wrong, so it must be in here to our Maui app instead. Now you can remove this. That is why I normally close this when I'm working with the other one. So within this, it's not connect endpoint. The name here it is okay. So that is the name of the app. So let's grab this. Then let's go back to this platform, and now here the namespace is demo Maui app to end. Okay, so see how I made an endpoint. I said endpoint. Oh wow, that's a new spelling. Okay, so we have this. Let's save that. And now in this, we are inheriting from this. This is the interface that we created, so we implement it. And now here we are going to use this SSL policy error.none. So what it's going to do here is you want to set the issuer of the certificate to this localhost so it can trust it. Else you're going to have an error when trying to do that. And here you need to use system.net.security. So make sure you do that as well. Okay, so with this, after done with this implementation, what we need to do here is we're going to register this in the program.cs file. So now let's navigate to the program. So in here, we are going to check if first the app is it Android, the platform that it is running, is it Android or is iOS or it is desktop, etc. If it is Android, we want to return this Android HTTP message handler, and that is what we just added. Okay, else then we want to return null, and I will close it. So that's what we are doing. So we are checking if it's Android, then return this. Now with this, we have to add our custom HTTP client here, so it can be used when the call is being made. Now in that, let's see down here, we can just have our section down there. Let me just grab this and I'll just paste them here. So we are adding the HTTP client. We give it a custom name. So here I say custom HTTP client. And now we are checking we want to state the base address. We are checking if the device is Android. We want to use this 10.0.2.2. If it is a desktop or any other device, we want to use this the localhost port. Now let's check the port of this API that we have. So we go to solution and I'll check the endpoint, open it. And now in properties, you can see we have this LAN settings. Let's see, the port here is 7047. So let's grab this. Let's go back again and I'll make sure we change it to the current port that we have in our API. Okay. So that's what we're doing. We configure the base address and we set it up to this base address that we have in here. And now that is all. All right, so we have this set, and yes, so that's what we need to do. The next thing to do here is we are going to create our login form. This is going to be a simple login form whereby all of this is going to be on one page. We're going to create our ViewModels and our model for that to handle the login and the registration. So let's have a look with that too. So for us to able to create that, we first have to create our service so we can render this for the login and now for the registration. Now this, we're not going to create an interface implementation because we're going to have only two methods. That is a login and a logout. Okay, so let's create a service here and I'll name it as client service. So I'll just go to the solution, right click on this for the endpoint. So let's go to the Maui. Now right click on this let's add a new folder as services. So within these services, we are going to create, so let me close this. We are going to create one class, and now this class is going to, we're going to name it as client service. So client service. Now with this client service, first of all, what we're going to do here is we need to inject this HTTP client factory. So we have to put it over here. This must be public, take note. And aside from that, let me clear all these because we don't need them. They are necessary. Want to make this code simple, and yeah, that's simple for you. Okay, so we have our HTTP client factory injected and now initialized. So what we're going to do here is we're going to first create our first method known as register model or registration model. So in here, we create our method known as register, and I'm going to pass in a registration register model. We haven't created this, okay? But we assume this registration model has two properties. It has a string email and it has a password, okay? Then the next thing to do here is we are creating this HTTP client section. So we create a client, and now we pass in the custom name as a custom HTTP client. I believe, remember where we created this. That's a program.cs. When we are setting up the HTTP client, we created this custom. So we have to add it to this. And the next thing to do, you're making a post request to the endpoint of the register. And as you can see, when you check the endpoint, let me just run the solution. Let's run this endpoint again. And now let's see what I'm talking about. So debug, and I'll go for start without debugging. So you can see that from here, we have all the endpoints here, and they are /register, /login, refresh token, etc. So if you want to go for this endpoint, you have to call the same route as specified in here. And that's exactly what we are doing here. We pass in the model. Now this model comprises of the register model, that's the email and the password. We check if the status code is success, or if the status code is success, then want to display this an alert to a user, register successfully or registration successfully completed. In case you have any issue, to then display the issue to the user as well. Now let's go in there and create this register model. So we go to solution, and where we have our folders, let's right click and I'll add a model to this. It has to be the Android, so take note, add a model, and I made it as models. So with these models, let's add register model. So after creating this register model, you need to specify some parameters in, and we need two parameters, username and password. That is what we need. So making registration is making it easy for us. We need just the email and password, and that's all. You know, once you've done this, we're going to create a login, right? And we're going to create a response. So this is what I'm going to do. I have them in here. Let me just grab them like this. And I come to the solution, these models, and I'll just have to paste them here. So let's have a look. Let's go through. First, I'm going to copy the namespace here to .models. I'll grab this here. Now let's go to the login model. Login model is also comprised of the same thing. And so that's the login models, email and password. And let's go to the response. So after successfully logged in, what are the response that you're going to have? Now to get this, we need to have the access token, refresh token, and the username. So definitely the endpoint is going to return these two ones here, the access token and the refresh token. The username is going to be set by us automatically when we make a call. Okay. Then we add the username, that's the person's email address to this. So we can save it to the secure storage for later reference. All right. So we have this. We have, and the last one that we have is the weather forecast. So you can see this is the same, the default model that you've seen already a couple of times. And that is what I have it in here too. Let me change the namespace. Good. So now that we have the model all created, let's return to the client service. There is a register, so we can include the namespace of that model. And that is it. Now, after doing this, let's have a look with the login too. So the login method. So you can see there's a payload coming in as login model. And now we have the same login. It has the two attributes as username and then the password. And aside from that, we are creating also a client here. So this is what we are doing. You can see I'm making a duplicate, and that isn't the best way to do that. We can optimize this by creating just one simple method, and I'll be calling all these HTTP clients in here. Okay. Today we are not doing code optimization. We are just learning on how to do that. Okay. So don't worry. Maybe later on we're going to talk about how to optimize your code as well. Now we call this post request endpoint as login. You pass in the module here, and now we check the response. If it is not null, if it is not null, then it means it has data in. Now we are going to use a secure storage to store it, but secure storage works with only strings. This is just a model. It's a complex object. You can't save it there, so we have to convert it into one string. Are you getting it? So you can do that by using this JSON serializer.serialize it. So this serializing is going to serialize it into just a string. Then you're going to use some maybe // to separate them, okay, in the string format, and we can save them. So you can see we are creating a new login response. Then we set this access token and look at the refresh token to the token that is coming from this response. And I will set the user email from this model coming in from the user as the username. Then we save it here. So it means as soon as the user is registered, we have the username, we have the refresh token, we can see we have the access token stored in the local storage. There we can use it anytime that we want. Good. So, and you can see from here, after grabbing all these important sections, we are going to set async. We're going to install them, and that is the name that we are using to install. Okay, so we have this in the local storage, and we are set. We are good to go. Aside from that, the next thing to do here is we're going to have access to our weather forecast. And now this weather forecast must have or should be called with a protected HTTP client. A client must have a header with a token or a bearer token before this can be processed. So if we check here, we are retrieving the local section. We are retrieving the serialized login response in the storage from the secure storage. So when we retrieve it, it's in the form of string. We have to deserialize it to make it in the model or object form. And that is exactly what we are doing here. And we want to set the token to the accession of the access token. So we are extracting access token from this list. And now we pass it on to the header. So that's a way to pass it on to the header. And that's what we've done here. And also after doing that, we are making a call. And this is an array. So this weather forecast is a model that we created. It is an array, and we are calling this to the endpoint of what weather forecast. Okay. And when we have the response, we're going to return the results to, because you know this is a return response. So we're going to return this response to this, and whereby anytime that you call this method, you're going to have access to the list of arrays in there, or the arrays of weather forecast. Okay, so that is what we have here. Let's save that. So with this, the next thing to do here is we need only 2 pages to do this. We have one page already by default, and that is the main page.xml. We're also going to add one, and that's going to be weatherforecast.xml as well. Okay. But first of all, the login section and the logout section are going to be, or the login and the registration will be in the main page. Okay. So let's have a look. Now to do that, you have to create a view model for that. Now I'm going to create a folder and I name it as view model. So you should do same folder, and I'll save it as view models. So since we're going to use the page, we have to create this. The name of the page here is the main page. So we check here, this is the main page. So let's create a view model for that. So I'm going to say main page view model. Okay. So main page view model, and that's going to be a class. So with this main page view model, what you need to do here is very simple too. Let's first make some cleanup. Okay, now we set this to public and partial, because you're going to be using this observable object, and this is coming from the package that we installed. That's what's the name? Community2k.mvvm. I hope you've remembered, right? So here we are going to inherit from this observable object, from this community2k.mbvm, as you can see from here. Let's put it here. Okay, so save all the work that you've done. And the next thing to do here is you're going to create a constructor and now inject the client service that we've created. Okay, so but before that, we want to have some properties created here. And what are these properties for? Let me add them. So you can see we have this register model, we have that login model. So that is what we are using to handle the user login and the user register model. Okay, this has two properties, username and password, and this also have the same property as username and password. Now if we check here, you can see we have this property name, and at this property name here we are having string username, and our bool is authenticated. What are you using this for? So this is going to handle the name of the user. As soon as you log in, your email is going to be assigned to that. And now as soon as your email is assigned to that, you're going to set, are you authenticated to true? If this username is null, it means the authentication state here is false. So we're going to set that to false. Okay. So we're going to just switch between the authenticated Boolean expression here all the time when you try to log in or log out. Okay. So let's create a constructor and now initialize this and inject our client or the service as well. So you can see we are injecting our client service. And if we check this, control period, we have to include the namespace of this client service. And you can see that we are initializing all the models. So register model will be null, login will be null, is authenticator will be false. And now here we have a method known as get username from the secure storage. So this method, what is it going to do? It will get the sessions, the data that we've stored into the secure storage, and now visualize it and extract the username and assign it to this username string here, so it can be displayed anywhere that we call this model. Okay, now we have next a button known as register. So if I click on register button, I want to call this because we are using this relay command, and I will call a service a method known as register from this service. Then we have to provide the payload, and the payload here is a register model, this. So when you use this observable property from this observable object, that's for MPVM, when you create some variables, you need not to specify this as capital, it must be lower. So its public property will be capitalized in here. Now this for register. Now let's see with the login. So as soon as I log in as well, this is what I want to do. So if I log in, now this is what you're going to do. You're going to say client service.login. Then we're going to also call this username from the secure storage, because maybe when the app loads, it's going to make a call. It checks the username and solves that one. There's no user there. There's no one registered or logged in. After running the app, you decide to log in. So in this case, you're not going to run this again, but rather this button has clicked, would have to call that event. Okay, and that is what you need to do. So we are creating this method to call this method. We create these logins. As soon as we click on that, we can call this method to get the name from the local storage. Is it local storage? But it's a secure storage, but they are local storage, isn't it? Yeah, so from the secure storage. Okay, now the next method here is to get weather forecast. So with this get weather forecast, what is it going to do? Let's have a look. Get weather forecast. So if I click on this, go to weather forecast, this is what I'm doing. I want to navigate to weather forecast page. We have not created this page yet. So we're going to create this weather forecast page. If I click on this button, point me to this page. Okay. Now the next one here, it is this get username from the secure storage. And let's go through. So it is checking if username is not null. And if the username is not equal to guest, then set authentication to true and I return. The reason is, it is getting the data from the secure storage all the time. Anytime the page loads, you see we are calling it over here. Anytime a login is clicked, also we are calling it over here. Now, anytime the page loads, you don't want to be repeating it all the time. So we check if the username string has the name already, meaning definitely that is the current user. So we have to first remove. I don't want to remove it. We're going to skip it, then maintain the data, the username that we have already. So that's what the first method is going to do. Now, if not, then we're going to get the data from the secure storage. Then we are going to check if it is not equal to null. We are going to deserialize it. Okay. So then after deserializing it, we're going to extract only the name. And username is equal to. We serialize it. So by deserializing this, then we are extracting only the username here. Okay, so we extract the username here. Remember that this username here is a string. So it's going to handle the username as a string from the local or the secure storage. Okay, but in case it is not, then I want to set the username to guest. So instead of saying hi netcode who has logged in, you're going to say hi guest. You see? Good. And that will be that. And we're going to set this authentication to false as well. Okay. Now let's save this. Everything all set. What I need to do here is the weather forecast page that we need to create. And now let's have a look on how to do that. So here, I'm not going to copy this main page view model and I replace it with this quick. Yes. So that is one. Now let's copy this weather forecast page. And now we're going to create a page for this. Okay, to stop and remove this red line. So go to the solution. Now let's add a folder known as views. Not as an item, rather I want to add folder first. So cancel. And I'll right click and I'll go to new folder. And now let's have it as views. Within the views, let's right click and now let's add an item. .NET Maui, click on that and now XML page, click on this. Okay, so we did not rename that. Okay, so we have it here. Let's rename it. So maybe you're gonna say weather forecast page. So we are renaming the page here. Okay, but it is not renamed here, so let's do it manually. All right, so we have our page here created. Okay, now let's right click and go to view code. And now let's see. So let's check this. Let's replace them here. Okay, so that is it. What we need to do. Now, what we need to do after this here is we are going to create the view model for this weather forecast. But before we create this view model, let's see. Now we have login, we have logout. No, we have login, we have register. But we are not having logout from the client service. So we have login, we have register even here. And you're not having logout, isn't it? So maybe from this, or we can handle this logout in the main page view model. Okay. So here we have login, we have register, which is calling that service. And we can handle the logout in there because the logout here, there's no API call. So it is just remove the data from the local storage or the secure storage. So secure storage.default.remove, and that is a key. We pass it on here and I reset authenticated to false and our username to guest. And that's all. So let's control period. Let's include this, the views folder, and we are good to go. Okay. So that is what we need to do. We are done with this main page view model. And let's see from the section, this weather forecast page, we have to create a view model for that because in a UI, you're going to link a button to this page whereby this page has to be shown if the user is authenticated. And the request for this page must have a header with a bearer token. So let's go to the view model and now let's try to create this weather forecast view model class in there to handle those sorts. So right click on view models and add a view model to this as a class. The name is weather forecast view model. And in this weather forecast view model, we want to handle it with this method. Let me just grab this very simple one. Then, we have to inherit from this observable object, from this current2k.mbvm. So we need this. Let's remove all this. Now control period, let's include this mbvm. And also we need the client service. So let's also include the reference, the client service. And this now observable collection, we need to also include the reference as well. Now there's an array format, so you can see we need to use an array. And now here, let's include the reference to where you have these models. Okay, so you can just remove the spaces between to make it simple for us. Yes. Okay, now all we're doing here is we inject this client service to the header, and now we are calling load weather forecast data. When the page loads, you want to call this, and this is the definition for this page. We can also put all this code in this. Okay, but it's advisable to put them in here and refer the method only. Now we are calling the client service to get this weather forecast. Remember that we've created this weather forecast method in the client service. So we call it over here. And now before we call, we want to make sure that we clear the container of this weather forecast. You know, this is a list. So we clear. If the response.any or when the count is greater than 0, we're going to loop through it. And now we're going to add each individual count, forecast to this list. And that is all that we are doing. Okay. As soon as you do that, you're going to be assigned it to this list here. And this is going to handle all the lists that we have created from the weather forecast. So we are done with all our code. What we need to do here is to create our UI. And I'll link them to their base. Okay. So here, let's have a look. We have to create our weather forecast page in here. Now, when you go to this page, you have to bind them, the 8 view model there. So we go to the views for the weather forecast, and in here we are going to bind it. So binding is very important, else we're going to have error in there. So let me just grab this and I'll paste it like this. So you can see we are passing in this weather forecast view model, and now we are binding the context of this to this, so we can have access to all this method inside the markup. All right, so let's see. Now we are done with this. Let's go to the main page as well, and I'll do same. So solution, you go to this main page view model, and it's from the views. We have it down here. So main page, and now with all this, we don't need any of this here. So we want to remove this. Okay. Now let's paste this. Now let's remove this too. You can just close one. Okay. Now here it is not no more client service, but rather it is our. Okay, so we have a client service, and that is it. So let's see. Let's include it. And here it is not client server, rather it's going to be this main page view model. So main page view model, that's right. So this is what we need to, because this is a main page and that is its view model. Okay, so we bind it to the main page view model, and I copy this and I replace it here. So we bind it to the context, and that is it. Now what we need to do here is the UI. So quickly, let's go to weatherforecast.xml here. Now within this UI, this is what you want to do. We first have to include the namespace and the data type in here. So from the weather forecast, let's include the model. And we can do that by adding the reference to it. Let me put them here. Okay, so it's a matter of copying the project name. And this is the project name as demo, and replacing the project name with this, so models. And now here, view models. And here is weather forecast view model. So we first have to get the models. We want to get the models, and where is the reference? It is from this project.mod, a folder called models. So when you check, this is the solution name, and this is the folder called models, and that's what we have here. We're looking for view model, the same solution name, and this is the folder view model. That is it. We specify the data type that we want from here, and we want this weather forecast. So in the view model, you see we have two forecasts. Not forecast, we have two view models, and we need the weather forecast view model instead. I hope this sounds clear. That's right. So let's close this. Okay. So I want to remove. All right. So we are set. Now let's have our UI. So here we are not doing anything better. Okay, this is not better. This is just a simple one, and I just wanted to display them for you to see that you're able to call a protected UI, a protected endpoint. So we're using this vertical stack layout, and we're using this collection view. We bind this item source to the weather forecast. That's a list over here, an array of observable collection. Then this is the data template as weather forecast model, and we have date, temperature, and etc. Okay, so with this, maybe we can specify the spacing as 10, and we can say this is horizontal option, center, and expand. Yeah, that's what we can do. Okay, now let's have a look with the home page. So, and that's going to be the home.xml. So first of all, you want to have access to maybe the same vertical stack layout. But this time around, what we want to do here is you want to display the login and the logout as well, the both. You want to display both. We're not creating a separate pages for them. We are creating just one page using the same main page to show you. So I want you to grab the idea here, but not the design. After the design, maybe you can do it yourself, because design takes time and it sucks at sometimes. So let's maintain this. So we have this vertical stack layout, and we have as margin as 20. You can see we have one button on top, and you can see we have this button over here as weather. So get weather. Now this is logout. Okay. So here we check if it is authenticated. And what does it mean? Meaning if this is true, then this is going to be visible. If this is true, it's going to be visible. And if authenticated is true, meaning the user has logged in, and the data or 8 token or username has been stored in secure storage. So as soon as you do that, you can have access to this as true. Else it's going to be false. Where if I click on get weather, I want to go to this weather forecast page. So the command that you created, we are binding it to it. And now here to the same thing, logout, we also bind the command or the event to this command. Also, we have this label, and now you want to display the username. So if I log in, the username is going to change to maybe Netcode-Hub, and I'm going to be over here. So you want to add hello, then pass in Netcode-Hub. So this is a string format that we are using. Okay, aside from that, we have the .NET bot image on top. We have the label, and as you can see, there's an entry whereby we are binding the method or the property to the object that we have as register model.email and the password. We have a button known as register command. So when this is clicked, a service is being called. The same thing applies to the login, email, and password. If it is clicked, this is get called. But you see, we have these errors here because we haven't added any reference to it. So quickly, let's add the references, and that will be all for this. So all that we need here is we need a data type, that's the view model, and that's all. So we have it. Well, let's copy this project reference, and now in here, project name, we change it, and that'll be all. So we are referring to the view models to get it, and this is the data type. It is not client view model, but rather it is homepage view model. That's the first one, and that is this one. So let's save this. Let me remove this. Okay, I think everything is set. Let's save this, and now let's run it and see. But we have not registered the services. Okay, so we have to go to the Maui program.cs file, and now let's register the client, the service, the page, the view models, and everything. So we register it over here. So down here, you can add them here. And client service, so control period. Let's include, register the main page, register the home page view model. So this is home page view model. We also register it in here. Okay, so this is the home page. That's the main page, isn't it? Yes. Don't be confused. So main page view model, control period, and then we add a reference to it. Weather forecast page, control period, and I also add a reference to it. One thing that I nearly forgot was, let's see which one. Yes, we have to register this in the, we go to the appshot.xml.cs class. So we have to inject the routing for this weather forecast page. So we go back solution, and I'll check this app.appshell. So in here, let's register the route. So we can make a click, and I can navigate to that component for us. So control period, let's include the reference. I believe all set and done. I'm sure. Now let's run this application and see what we have now. Oh, okay. So the same thing is running, that's the API. No, we won't do that. So let's change this. Let's change it from here. So solution, we want to set this endpoint, this up as an endpoint. So set as startup project. And in here, we don't want to use Windows. We want to use a framework of Android. And now let's click on get it run. All right, so we have it, and that is the UI that you see here. Now let's also run the API. So this is the API. Right click on the API and now click on debug and start without debugging. Let's see if the API is also in session. Okay, so our API is also running here. Now let's check it out. So in here, we are going to create an account first. So we're going to say this is test@gmail.com. And now the password at 123. So click on create an account. And now let's wait for the response. So maybe let's put a breakpoint somewhere here in the service. So we go to solution, then we check the service here. So there's the registration. So you put a breakpoint, and now let's check it again. So you can see we have successfully registered, right? That's the endpoint here. So there's an output, and that's what you see. Now quickly let's okay, so that is what. Now let's check the database. So from the SQL Server object, right click on the ASP.NET users, click on view data. Remember that the email that we used was Maui test, right? 123 mauitest@gmail.com. Let's wait for it to open. Then let's check if it is in the database. So let's refresh. Exactly. So you can see that we have it here. So we have the Maui test, and that is this one. If I open this, well, you can see you have the email in here, and you have all the stars as well, right? Now let's go in there and I'll try to log in and see what we have. So in here, we are going to log in. Then there's a login section. It is mauitest@gmail.com. The password Maui@123. That is the password. Now the reason why we see this as masked here is if you check the UI. Where is the UI? If you check, let's have a look with the UI solution. You go to the main page.xml. To the password, we set its password feature to true. That's the reason why it has masked it in there. Okay. Now let's log in and see. So click on this. And now watch here. So as soon as we load, we have this hello guest, isn't it? Now check it out. I click on login. And now let's wait and see. So you can see now we have hello. There's a Maui@gmail.com. So this is your email. So let's say this is a claim that we requested, or we did not even request that because we had it in the login. So we took your email and now add it to the tokens and now store it in there. Now this header that you see there has a token. Let's click on logout and see. So if I click on logout, you see it is off again. If I click on login, let's see. So I'm going to click on, let's put a breakpoint to check whether you have a token in there. So where we have the client service, there's a login. So put a breakpoint here. And now let's go back. See, login, it has been hit. If I put because you can see this is the model that we provided, mauitest@gmail, now there's a password. If I step in, let's see what the next thing. So we're going to create this HTTP client factory. So let me put it here. I'm going to create it here. And click on continue. So this is hit. Now this is going to call this API. Click on next. And now with this, the response is going to be 200 So let's see, because we have status code of 200 and the reason phrase is what? Okay. So now let's read and see if we have the token in here. Click on next, and then that's a response. So let's see. If I click on it, you can see we have the access token, we have this refresh token. So the type of this token is bearer. So bearer token for the access and then the refresh token. But the username is null. So that's why here we provide the username in here to use the model coming in here. Okay, so let's continue on. Oh, so that's all right. So let's run it again. All right, so as soon as the page reloads, now we did not click on login button, but we see we have the email set over here and we are logged in. The reason is we have the data in the local storage or the secure storage already. So instead of it to hide this, this is open because we authenticated already. If I click on logout, you can see we have nothing here. Now if let's log in then, so test@mail.com, and now let's have that Maui at 123. So let's remove all the breakpoints from here. Then click on in. Okay, so we have it here. Now you can click on weather forecast. And if I click on weather forecast, you can see now we have this is the weather forecast, so warm, balmy, and etc. Right? Now we can just go back again and now see. Now that's what you're going to do. We can just close this up. Okay, so when you minimize this, and later on, even when you try to open it again, it's going to first search. It's going to first this method. So let's see. From the home page view model, it's going to first search for this method, get username from the secure storage. Now this method is going to get from the secure storage and check if the key it is there. It's going to set the username to this. Then you're going to set this authenticated to what? To true, meaning you're authenticated because your credentials are stored in the local storage already, or that's the secure storage. So even when you close this and open it again, you have to register once and the app will keep remembering that until you log in, you log out yourself. As soon as you log out and I'm trying to open it again, they need to provide the login credential as well. And until you log in, you can't have access to this weather forecast. You see? Yeah, so that is it for this video. I hope this is very simple and clear to you. Yeah, I'll leave the source code at the GitHub so you can just check the video description and now get it over there. Thank you so much for watching this video. And maybe let me know your thoughts, what you think about this. And also maybe in case you have a thing that we can also add to modify this, let me know. And I'm going to catch you up in the next video.